News, Real Life. We break down state and federal issues, showing how policy shapes everyday Americans. Engaged, balanced, and informative. That's our promise. I'm your host, Mikkel Jenkins.
And I'm Muhammad Al joining Mikhail as usual. A lot of more interesting than usual because people think that there's some kind of news they can rely on with the ceasefire, and then what do you know? Surprise, surprise, the ceasefire gets violated. But we'll get into that. We'll get into that. Yeah,
Yes.
but I'm happy to be here, Mikhail, to talk about the interesting going ons of today's world.
Yeah, it's been a lot of developments since we last spoke on Monday. The ceasefire, everything going on with the Strait of Hormuz, as well with Lebanon, and some domestic developments as well. But today we're going to be giving you a clear, straightforward update on the US Israel Iran situation from April 6th through April 8th. So, as we know, the 2 week ceasefire had been announced, and I say had as a past tense because the current situation is already looking very shaky. We'll cover the timeline, the ceasefire details, including shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, Iran's 10-point plan, how the war began, Israel's reaction and strikes in Lebanon, implications for allies and NATO, the latest from Taiwan, and some important domestic politics updates here at home. So let's get right into it. Just to add a recap, the conflict escalated sharply at the end of February when the US and Israel launched major strikes on Iranian leadership, nuclear sites, and military groups. Iran responded with heavy missile and drone attacks and closed the Strait of Hormuz, threatening global oil supplies. By early April, the war had been going on for over a month with serious damage on all sides. And then we have April 6th, where Iran rejected a U.S. proposed temporary ceasefire. They countered with their own detailed 10-point proposal and said they want a permanent end to the war, not just a short pause. President
Eh,
Trump called,
all points
yeah,
aside, I know I'm kind of jumping the gun here, but I think it's interesting, all things considered, is that 10-point plan did get accepted for the ceasefire.
yeah,
Yeah,
literally got accepted for the ceasefire, and he was calling it not good enough, and kept the pressure about really opening the Strait of Hormuz, which we all know was operating just fine previously before this war started. And then you have late on April 7th, there was an agreement that was reached. The U.S., Iran, and Israel announced a 2 week ceasefire, and the main condition: Iran must immediately reopen the Strait of Hormuz for safe shipping. In return, the U.S. agreed to pause its bombing of Iran. Both sides were claiming victory, and Trump was stating it's a big win for the U.S. and Iranian leaders. And they're saying that the U.S. was forced, well, U.S. is stating that Iran was forced into this, but what Muhammad was stating was that we ended up just accepting Iran's 10-point proposal
I kind of
for the
couldn't believe
terms.
it, and I thought to myself, "There's definitely something more gonna go on here." And based off what's happening, I kind of want to claim that's exactly what happened because
Yeah,
it is.
it's pretty astounding as well. And then you've had previously when he's talked about journalists speaking out and stating leaking information regarding the whole rescue operation, you had CNN state out that there was no actual formal written agreement. And I believe that's just the Trump administration in the background, just working against the media and wanting them to set the record straight and basically putting out their own narrative of the situation, even though Trump had tweeted out the official letter from Iranian leadership basically stating that we are accepting their 10 points as the general groundwork for negotiations. And that's
Yeah.
a strategic failure across all boards. And this 2 week pause on major U.S. and Israeli strikes inside Iran is pretty much non-existent at this point, because one of the major points of the ceasefire that's now not even standing or barely standing was that Israel and the United States would stop all attacks for Iranian allies, including Lebanon. And even hours after the signage, well, not the signage, the announcement of the ceasefire,
Yeah.
Israel just went right on ahead and started bombing Lebanon, just
Heavily,
bombing left and right.
heavily.
Yeah,
They attacked
very
one of the most
heavily.
populated cities of Lebanon.
Literally. I think they hit Beirut, I believe, almost 200, 300 casualties, and just consistently just bombing them left and right. And we've now seen that Iran is, sticking up for themselves and Lebanon, and they're not allowing any ships to flow through the Strait of Hormuz. It is now back to being closed. And under the framework that was proposed, there would be a guiding principle framework for the 2 million per vessel. And in some reports, there'd be about $1 per barrel as well. So not only within the proposal, Iran would continue to have their strengthening grip on the Strait of Hormuz. We would stop all attacks on their allies. They would keep their enrichment uranium. They would keep their ballistic missiles, and as well
Yeah, that was
on
the
the
craziest part of the whole agreement to me, that they would have continued to allow to be able to continue their nuclear enrichment.
yeah,
That was overall the craziest part, 'cause I'm like, that's the whole reason why they said they need to go to war with Iran is because of their nuclear enrichment.
exactly. And now they're going to be able to to keep that. And Iran is only going to further shut down levels of communication. We've known previously, before the ceasefire was even announced, Iran was consistently stating that they are not going through the United States, they're going through mediators. And Pakistan and China have, Pakistan and China have been the adults in the room.
And I want
It
to
was
add as
stated.
well
Mhm.
that Israel and the United States were trying to claim that Lebanon was not included in the ceasefire agreement with the
Yeah.
United States. But which two things were said actually about that. One was that the deal wasn't signed with Israel, it was only signed with the United States, which is technically correct. And two, which is I think the more interesting part of it, is that Pakistan said that the United States did agree specifically to the fact that Lebanon is included in the ceasefire deal, with Israel needing to back off in that one specific circumstance. So Israel's trying to say, oh, well, technically we're not part of the deal, so we can do whatever we want still. Whereas the United States is now, well, bombing Iran, and going against it still at the end of the day, really, right now. So a lot needs to be seen about how much value can really be put in this ceasefire,
Yeah,
if
I
you can even
mean,
call it that anymore.
yeah, it's barely even a ceasefire. It's really just a stalling of a continued war that's only going to wage on because Israel is acting as a complete rogue state. And now Iran is
Oh,
only
dude,
going to
insane.
be more
Tail wagging the
empowered.
dog 100%.
With, yeah, 100%. And Iran's only going to be more enriched from this ceasefire, given, there were no fees, no shipping fees or anything of that nature for oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. So now they're not only going to have the 2 million per vessel, but then on top of that, the potential of the $1 per barrel as well. And these fees would be shared with Oman as well, and directed towards Iran's reconstruction efforts, which makes sense. And it's basically another way to put it, instead of the United States just straight out handing Iran money for retribution for what we did and bombing their facilities and things of that nature, their schools, things and pieces of infrastructure like that. Instead of reparations, on the sense, we're just going to allow them to just build up mounds of money from the Strait of Hormuz, even though we have been trying to get this open since the start of this war, because it was already open before the war, and everything's just gotten worse because we have no exit plan. And now we're basically being forced to fall on our sword. And if this is truly the groundwork for a ceasefire, it is a strategic epic failure for this administration going forward. And I know I think either Friday or Saturday, there is potential talks with JD Vance potentially leading it. But it's just depending upon what comes from that, this war could only just continue on because Israel, as I've said, is being a rogue state and they just want to expand their greater Israel theory and just take over all of the Middle East in their own way. And that's why you
I'm
even have now Trump is actually speaking to, I think, the NATO secretary about repositioning the United States out of NATO. And this all fuels, which we've talked on this podcast, about Israel wanting to go after Erdogan and Turkey. And I keep bringing it up, but that is also within that QAnon theory as well that Israel would be going after Turkey. So it's not crazy to think that these things aren't happening on purpose, but it's also sad to see that this administration is blindly following Israel on every account. And it's going to be even worse once we truly get into how this war was even started and what took place to persuade Trump to even start this war. I don't know if you saw that,
It was basically like it was a
Muhammad.
presentation from the Israelis about the benefits to
Yeah,
it.
in
Yeah.
the situation room where no foreign leader has ever been in. Bibi Netanyahu was there, and this is according to a New York Times report, which is giving more insight really into how the war even started. So on February 11th, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made a rare in-person presentation. It was a PowerPoint presentation to President Trump and his top advisors in the White House Situation Room. Netanyahu gave a hard sell, arguing that Iran was ripe for regime change. And now we're claiming that the regime has changed because it's a different head of
Head
state,
of
but
state.
it's just literally Khamenei's son. So
Yeah,
much
same
for
ideology.
regime change. Same ideology, just a younger individual and a lot more hard lines. So it's even
Yeah.
worse in some extents. But Netanyahu, during this presentation, claimed a joint U.S. Israeli operation could quickly destroy Iran's ballistic missile program, that Tehran would be too weak to close the Strait of Hormuz or seriously attack neighbors, and that the regime could collapse with help from groups like the Kurds. Now, everything I literally just said, we saw fail in real time. Iran's ballistic missiles are still intact, at least 50%, which has been reported by US intelligence. Tehran has withstood all of these attacks and has not crumbled. We've talked about how they have 8 to 9 various chains of command in every single function. So even if 5 people are killed in a certain area, they still have 4 or 3 individuals who still will know what to do. And they're stating that they wouldn't close the Strait of Hormuz. That's one of the first actions that were taken, is that closure, and they were and have been and are continuing to attack their Gulf neighbors. We see Kuwait, UAE, Saudi Arabia all getting hammered by Iran and all complaining to the United States about this. Trump reportedly responded positively, of course, by saying, "Sounds good to me," after the presentation, with which Netanyahu took as a likely green light. Some of Trump's own staff and advisors, which highly pointed to JD Vance as being the biggest skeptic of it all, possibly trying to save somewhat of his presidential run in 2028.
It's a
But
smart
then,
move to do that
no,
after all.
definitely a smart move, and it seems like they're also trying to pivot all of this blame on Netanyahu. But overall, it stands on Trump because he gave the okay to go ahead to do this, and even his own staff and advisors privately called parts of Netanyahu's pitch just bullshit and just not true at all, and especially the optimistic predictions about a quick victory and regime change. Yet we all know Trump was deeply impressed by what Netanyahu and Israeli intelligence promised, and the inner circle largely went along with his instincts. This behind the scenes moment helped set the stage for the strikes that began on February 28th. And it's sickening, very sickening, that it took a PowerPoint presentation from a foreign leader, even worse, it's Israel, to persuade the leader of the strongest government in the world to strike Iran. A PowerPoint presentation he was sold on after his own advisors and staff are skeptical against it and are basically stating we're going to be going through a long, hellish war, battle, conflict if we do strike Iran. And he did it anyway.
I mean, I think that
Mm.
at the end of the day, Trump's a businessman. So if you're gonna appeal to that side of him, odds are you can get a lot of the things that you want, and that's what Israel's doing. Like, honestly, decks, the corporate term for presentations, people do enjoy them and actually prefer them in terms of being pitched something because it's like the most common form of corporate means of being given some form of information.
Yeah,
So I think that they did it for that purpose largely. And I think that it's not too surprising that Trump would go alongside it if it was presented in a way that was complete lies, that was fabricated specifically to make it him think that it's a good idea. Which, based on the fact that none of what Netanyahu and co included in the alleged presentation has happened, far it all failed, makes me think that it was quite literally all lies meant to make Trump hop on board with it, going against own U.S. intelligence. And the biggest issue is why are United States presidencies believing other countries' intelligences over our own? You know, that's
without a doubt.
the big
It's
issue here.
troubling.
And if
It's
Trump actually
very
decided to
troubling.
take faith in the American intelligence over the Israelis, I mean, this brings back the issue, kind of the idea of what happened back in, what was it, around the New Year, I believe it was, where maybe even earlier around Thanksgiving, where there was talks of the United States striking Iran, and Gabbard told Trump that based off their intelligence, American intelligence, that the Iranians are years away from a nuclear weapon.
Yes.
And
Yep.
whereas
Yep.
Trump was claiming that, "Oh, well, the Israelis are claiming that they're weeks away to months away at most."
Mhm.
And with that, then we decided to bunker bomb the, nuclear facilities, production
Yeah,
facilities of
which
Iran.
we claim to destroy their nuclear capabilities, mind you. Mind you,
Yeah,
they all
yeah. So
stated that
it's
and
all
beated their
difficult to
chest
really know
over it.
what's happening because we're being presented with the information from our own media sources and government, which are very dependent on giving us a certain image. But,
Very,
with that s
very.
yeah. But with that said, I do think that Trump really thought there would be a benefit to this that would benefit him directly. And there's the reports of him thinking that this would help him with the polling numbers. There's the reports of him of coming out of, this presentation from the Israelis, and all of it fits his character also, but on top of that, has things that match what's going on.
Yeah, I
So
also truly think he got too cocky, honestly. Just think about it. I mean, he got you heard it during his speech what last week, 2 weeks ago. He said he got Soleimani. He got Maduro, Venezuela. War with the tariffs and everything was running high on that until the Supreme Court shot it down. He thought that rinse and repeat. This is just going to be just as easy, and that PowerPoint presentation was the catalyst for all of this and the sticking point that convinced him fully that we were capable of just flatlining Iran outright within a week or even less than that, which is categorically false because, as Mohammed was stating, U.S. intelligence has stated that Iran can withstand our capabilities, and as well as not even going towards the path of building a nuclear weapon. But now we're going to be empowering them, just given the groundwork from the proposals that Iran has put forth. And we're going to dive into that proposal just a little bit. And we know that President Trump has described the 10-point plan as a workable basis for the upcoming negotiations, which may be taking place Friday or Saturday. I do believe it's going to be Saturday and not Friday, but I have heard both days. But Iran claims the U.S. has now accepted the general framework for their proposal, and the main points include a guarantee of no future U.S. or Israeli attacks on Iran, acceptance of Iran's right to enrich uranium, lifting of all sanctions on Iran and related parties, continued Iranian control, and a new protocol for the Strait of Hormuz, including the new fees that we just mentioned earlier, withdrawal of U.S. combat forces from the region, complete cessation of fighting on all fronts, including against Iran's allies and proxies, and then support for reconstruction and compensation for war damage. And if these points gain traction in talks, many analysts say that Iran could emerge strategically stronger. With this regime still in power, possible sanction relief and preserved enrichment rights, new revenue from the Strait fees, and continued regional influence will only open the gap wider for how more powerful Iran will become within the region.
They've had a lot more economic leverage over the
A
Strait since this
lot
all
more.
started.
Yeah, I mean, there were no fees before this nonsense even started, and now $2 million per vessel, $1 per barrel. It's absolutely insane. I think I've seen calculations from people stating it's almost like 50 billion a year or something of that nature that they're getting, which is interesting to point to because Republicans were so outraged during the Obama administration when in 2015 the Iran nuclear deal was reached. They heavily criticized Obama for what they called a weak agreement that included the release of about 1.7 billion in cash to Iran as a part of a legal settlement. That legal settlement had to do with arms agreements back in I think like 1987 or something of that nature,
Yeah.
but many accused it of essentially paying Iran and giving them too much while getting little in return on the nuclear front. Now we see that under the Trump approach, we have a military conflict followed by this 2 week ceasefire and negotiations built on Iran's own 10-point framework. Critics are already drawing comparisons, with some Republicans expressing concern that this path could end up giving Iran even more concessions, including formal acceptance of enrichment rights, full sanction relief, and new revenue streams than the Obama deal ever did. All after this costly war, which has run up to, I think, about what, $30 trillion. This debt, I mean, this war, I mean, $30
War is
billion dollars,
expensive, man, yeah, very
like
high
$30
amount of
billion
money.
dollars that we're
Yeah,
already at now, national debt skyrocketing. It's absolutely insane. And we all know Trump has long called the Obama deal a disaster and says his approach is much tougher. But at this point, there's going to be no restrictions on Iran's uranium if this framework is really what's going to be the outline for this deal, well, this ceasefire going forward. And I love how people were saying that I forget what the saying is. It's talk they're calling it Taco Tuesday about Trump. It was like I forget what the it was like an acronym, but something about him just all talk and just backing down consistently,
yeah.
especially on this front. But yeah, I mean it's absolutely ridiculous to see that he criticized Obama time and time again. Republicans criticized Obama time and time again. 1.7 billion flown on pallets on airplanes straight to Iran. But now you're going to have the Trump administration basically allow Iran to fill their coffers with as much money that they want to because they can just allow as many tankers to flow through the Strait of Hormuz. So that is now the situation, and that is now the quote unquote 4D chess that the Trump administration was playing when playing with fire with Iran. And unfortunately, this is the situation that we're in. And now we're going to cover Israel's reaction. So, as we know, the ceasefire was made, and Israel was not centrally involved in the final negotiations between the
They
US
got
and
pissed.
Iran. Yeah, they got sidelined. They were
Pissed.
benched. And I'm actually glad this is actually a a slight fracture in our relationship with them that they weren't brought to the table because of this. Multiple spokespeople online just went absolutely crazy about this, mostly Israeli spokes individuals. But as I was getting into, those talks were mainly brokered through Pakistan and Israel, and as well as China as well. But Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office issued a statement supporting the pause on Iran. And here's what they said: Israel supports President Trump's decision to suspend strikes against Iran for 2 weeks, subject to Iran immediately opening the straits and stopping all attacks on the US, Israel, and countries in the region. But they added a very firm caveat: the 2 week ceasefire does not include Lebanon, which is one of the 10 points in the 10-point plan. And right after the
Yeah.
ceasefire was announced, Israel carried out some of the heaviest attacks as we were covering earlier, hitting over 100 targets in just minutes across Beirut and other areas. Reporters described it as one of the most intense days of the war. Lebanon's civil defense and health authorities report that these strikes killed at least 254 people and wounded more than 1,100 others on April 8th alone. This is the highest.
1, 2. Mikhail may have gotten disconnected, everybody. Trying to see what is happening with him. I believe he did get disconnected. So I'm gonna I'm gonna pick up where he left off. So a big part of the 10-point plan actually was Israel saying, Mikhail, can you hear me? Mikhail,
Yes, did I pop out?
you did hop out, yeah.
Unfortunate. But if
But you're
you
back now. I can't confirm. I was just about to start speaking from the 10-point plan that you were talking about with Lebanon involved, and then you came back.
Okay, so yes, Lebanon. Sorry about that. Some Israel's cracking down on us over here in New Jersey. But yes, it was a horrible day in Lebanon, unfortunately, which now with the broader fighting in Lebanon and this attack, the total death toll is now at 1,500 with over 1 million people displaced. Israel says these operations against Hezbollah are completely separate and not covered by the Iran ceasefire. As we know, as this war was raging on, they just out of the blue started attacking Lebanon left and right. And Pakistan's prime minister, who helped broker the deal, and also Israel tried to bomb one of the mediators. One of the Pakistani mediators ended up killing his wife. But this individual publicly stated that the ceasefire includes everywhere, including Lebanon and elsewhere, and took immediate effect. The U.S. and Israel quickly clarified that Lebanon is not part of the agreement. You even had J.D. Vance earlier today getting ready to get on board Air Force One, reaffirming that notion that Lebanon was not included in the agreement.
And that's
With
when
many,
Pakistan came out and said that,
yeah,
yes, as a matter of fact, it
it
was.
is. Like I just don't all on all to bend the knee to great Israel, and we
Right?
know
It's so frustrating. Like, we're
so
America. We're
frustrating.
America for Christ's sakes. Like, what are we doing
It's
bending the
so
knee to
frustrating,
this
dude.
tiny country in the Middle East?
Yeah,
It's so
and like
frustrating.
these attacks are really the attacks on Lebanon are really just to tear up this deal. Like they don't want nothing to happen. We've
I mean,
reported
yeah,
on here
Israel
that
wants the land.
yeah,
They are using it to break apart the deal that they weren't a part of. America's going along with it because they'll follow what Israel does because they either trust them or What some other reason, blackmail
I was
maybe.
gonna say maybe they really do have the Epstein files locked down over there, and that's why
Honestly,
Trump is
maybe,
so, like,
maybe. It's frustrating as hell though.
crusading on it. And it was also interesting to know that a lot of people have been bringing this up. We've brought it up before about how President Trump did not put his hand on the Bible when swearing into office. Tucker Carlson brought that up and was basically stating how from that first moment we should have already known where this presidency was headed. But Iran has warned continuously that continued attacks on Lebanon could cause them to walk away from the entire ceasefire, and they have already suspended further tanker traffic through the Strait of Hormuz in response. I believe only
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
tankers, I believe, were only able to get through before these attacks happened, which God bless everyone's wallets if there is no stoppage to this fighting and or allowing of U.S. tankers to flow through, because we are seeing some trickle down in the markets for oil. I believe it might have went down to 95, I believe, but it has ticked back up a little bit, but it's at
Yeah, I
least not
mean,
within that
it went
100
down
range.
very rapidly based off the news that the ceasefire was kicking
Yeah.
in and that there'd be a stop to all the violence, and then the fact that, "Oh, wait, no, it's still going on," is kind of gonna have the opposite effect. It's possible, just look, I'm a big technical analysis guy, and just looking at everything, I do think there's a chance that things can fall down to 70, $75 and then jump back up. Maybe it was based off news, maybe US goes back into the ceasefire. Who knows?
Yeah.
Things are
Yeah.
very unpredictable, very unpredictable.
Very, very, very
But I wouldn't be
unpredictable.
surprised if things keep going up from now, and I wouldn't be surprised if the 2 weeks those try to get followed on, and then after that, it's just even more. If there's violence involved, there'll still be an attempt to make it civil by the United States, and then after that, it'll be all hell loose.
Yeah, 100% all hell loose, and that's what Israel wants. They don't want a ceasefire. They don't want to end this war. They just want Iran to no longer exist, and that's something that's not going to happen. And with all of this going on, I want to get into the implications for the UK, Russia, and NATO. For the United Kingdom, the UK pushed strongly for diplomacy throughout the conflict and limited its role for defensive actions only, such as intercepting missiles over the Gulf and protecting allies. British leaders have welcomed the ceasefire pause, but stressed that a lasting permanent solution is still urgently needed due to concerns over oil prices and shipping security. For Russia, Russia offered mediation early on and maintains close ties with Iran. The war diverted Western attention and resources away from Ukraine, and higher oil prices provided an economic boost for Russia. So not only are we providing reconstruction money and fees through this 10-point proposal, if it is passed, but we're also economically boosting Russia at the same time. Moscow is likely to continue positioning itself as a potential future broker while quietly supporting its Iranian ally. On the NATO angle, President Trump is reportedly considering a plan to punish more NATO countries that he views as unhelpful during the Iran war.
Which
According
is a
to
lot of them, if not most of
oh,
them, if not nearly all
oh,
of them.
a lot of them. And
Yeah.
according to the Wall Street Journal, this could include moving or withdrawing U.S. troops from nations that did not provide sufficient support. And mind you, he said this about South Korea and Japan. Trump has publicly criticized NATO allies for doing absolutely nothing to help, and some advisors are discussing re examining the entire U.S. commitment to the alliance after the conflict. So it is important to note that he is stating he wants to possibly remove NATO US troops from these countries. And specifically, I touch on South Korea because North Korea has always wanted to get South Korea. And after we've moved our THAAD missiles from South Korea, this only adds another layer for prevalence for North Korea to go and attack South Korea. Something that I don't think would happen near future. When I say near future, I mean months, but I could see possibly maybe within the tail end of Trump's presidency, depending upon where certain things are at, that North Korea could make potential moves. But we know that the president is fond of Kim Jong Un because of the way that he spoke about President Biden, calling him I think, a retard or something of that nature.
He
But
called Kim Jong Un also called Trump a what was it? It was a word that started with a B. A botter, something like that. I'm blanking on it, but it basically meant like an old dumb man.
yeah, he falls for those types of things, unfortunately. And then over within that Asia region, going to provide a Taiwan update and the opposition leaders visit to China. So on April 7th, yesterday, Taiwan's main opposition leader Cheng Lee Won, I want to say, chairwoman of the KMT party, began a 6-day journey for peace in China. As we said on the podcast on the last episode, this is the first visit by a sitting KMT chair in about 10 years. She started in Shanghai and planned stops in Nanjing and Beijing, where she may meet President Xi Jinping. This individual traditionally favors closer ties with China and supports peaceful dialogue toward eventual reunification under a one China framework. That is the same framework that the US has with China. There is only one China. There's not two states. There's not Taiwan and China. We just deal with China through Taiwan. So, under that precipice is where this opposition leader is coming from as well. They understand that looking at the whole landscape with Iran and how we've just bombed and basically destroyed their infrastructure, Taiwan understands their importance to the digital age coming forward, and that they could be another battleground, as we've stated on the podcast, about China going in there and possibly waging war for Taiwan. But with this war taking place, a single shot is not going to be fired for reunification of Taiwan to China. And this is all going to happen because of this nonsensical war of Trump led by Israel. We are empowering Iran with this 10-point plan. We are empowering Russia by not keeping an eye on the Ukraine war and driving up global oil demand. And now we're seeing that Taiwan is looking to cozy up to China for reunification. The big three individuals that we always state as threats, we are only more so empowering. And I've
Oh, yeah,
seen, yeah,
absolutely.
it's ridiculous. We're literally empowering the biggest individuals that are in BRICS, which is the other like NATO's like the opposite of NATO in a sense. We're empowering the biggest individuals within all of this. And I've seen people try to break down this whole war in a sense about, maybe Trump is trying to see the American empire truly fall for a good reason, so that now then we'll have all of these countries coming to the United States for oil and resources and things of that nature. I counter with Mohammed. Have you seen reports or things of that nature?
I have not actually.
So yeah, especially the one professor, I forget how to pronounce his name, but the Asian professor that has been prominent within the news. He is now starting to state that maybe there is a path from this, that Trump is actually trying to destroy the U.S. empire and its dependence in having its bases everywhere around the world, and really closing in and bringing everything in on just the United States. And that's why he wants to go for Greenland for resources, go for Venezuela for oil, go for Panama for trade, all of these things just in our own hemisphere, because the global system is failing and everyone is just, pulling in their own chips to make sure they're safe before the whole system falls.
Oh,
And
there it
oh, there we
is.
go. Got the video up.
Finally.
Got the video up.
I had to move my tower to the side, but yeah, I finally got my camera fixed. Good God.
Yeah,
Okay.
way to go, way to go. But
I gotta get this angle fixed now. I got
in
too much
all of this,
lag.
I just don't see how that works out because like you have Japan that has reached out to Iran for deals to get their oil through the strait. Like if Iran can make deals with Japan and other countries, I don't see how
US
all of these
loses so much
individuals.
leverage.
Yeah, I don't see what leverage is really brought about from that. Like, yes, I know we are very oil independent and so forth, but if we have these countries that are making deals with Iran instead and are able to knock off these fees that are now going to be added because of us, maybe they find their own path forward. And like he said, go get your own oil. Maybe they actually will instead of buying it from the United States because they'll feel like they have been left stranded by us. And I'm sure a lot of them have.
That's why I'm interested to see what happens with the Gulf states. I mean, I'm sure some
Yeah,
of them
yeah,
do
yeah.
wanna see Iran go down because they fuel a lot of proxy groups that caused issues for them around that region. But at the same time, I do know this is probably shining a light on how much of a benefit it is to cozy up to the US versus cozy up to the neighbors directly immediately next to you in the form of Pakistan, China, Russia, the ones that you're connected to by land. And that's not on the opposite side of the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. I think if all these things happens, we pull out of NATO, we start consolidating, Israel starts to go after these bigger countries, not bigger countries, I'm sorry. These other countries such as Turkey and Pakistan, Israel will fall. Without a
It's
doubt. I believe Israel
highly
will
possible.
fall.
In my opinion, once Western Europe fully gives out of Israel, the United States will be in a slow process be forced to give that up
Yeah,
because
yeah,
they'll choose Western Europe and Europe in general over Israel because it just
100%.
it just makes more sense.
No, 100%. I completely agree. And that is all that we have just for the global section. I know that was a lot, but there was a lot to get
A lot's
into.
happening. A lot here, hold on, let me
Um,
check that. I think I wanna check the oil prices before we switch topics. I think it is at, like, 95 right now.
yeah, honestly, let me before we hop off, not hop off, just get off this section. I want to just double check.
97 currently.
You open up X and always the first thing you see is newsworthy. So there we go. Yep. Oil executives pressured Trump administration to reject any deal allowing Iran to charge tolls in the Strait of Hormuz. We didn't have to do that before. I thought we won the war. Very well put, fellas. I thought we won the war too. But look
Yeah.
where we are. Iran has way more
Honestly, that's a
leverage.
very good way of, like, attacking his ego and, like, his pride. It's like, "I thought we won. Why is this happening?"
And now look at this automatic registration for US military draft to begin in December. Wow. Spain's prime minister is calling for the EU to suspend its trade and diplomatic agreement with Israel
Israel.
after the
Yeah.
Israeli strikes in Lebanon. So as all of
It's
these,
interesting.
yes, as all of these pieces are moving left, right, up, down, and around, always be sure to catch our live episodes for all the up to date, behind the scenes action for what's going on globally. And now we're going to be moving to our domestic side of things, which isn't as abundant, but it still is important to note a lot of the things that have happened.
Yeah, there's so much happening internationally and literally nothing domestically almost in
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
comparison.
It's because I mean, the House they're in recess.
They're adjourned right
Yeah,
now.
they're adjourned, so there's going to be a, war powers. Well, I'll get into all of that
Yeah, yeah, you can
in
get
the
into
end.
all that, you can get
But,
into all that.
shifting to some more major news on the home front, on Tuesdays, this past
Uh,
Tuesdays,
crap. Here,
what
give
was
me a
that?
second. Camera's
Yeah,
back
yeah,
up, keep talking, keep talking.
yeah, yeah. On Tuesday nights, special elections, Democrats scored big wins that are sending shockwaves through the Republican Party. Democrats have now flipped a staggering 30 plus state legislative districts from red to blue since President Trump took office, with Republicans flipping 0 seats the other way. That puts them on a 30-0 or better streak heading into the 2026 midterms. At the same time, Democrat Brian Nathan narrowly flipped Senate District 14 in Hillsborough County, which is Tampa area, by just 408 votes. The split was 50.2% to 49.75%. These Florida flips are being called Democrats' best election night in years. And also, don't forget, Democrats flipped Mar-a-Lago, where Trump lives at. And party leaders and analysts say that these results, along with earlier flips in places like Texas, Iowa, New Hampshire, Arkansas, and Mississippi, are a clear warning sign for Republicans. Voters appear frustrated with rising gas prices, grocery costs, and the ongoing Iran conflict. Democrats are using this momentum to say the midterms could be a bloodbath for the GOP if the trend continues. And it's really only going to get continuously worse if Republicans aren't able to strip themselves from the Trump administration in any way possible. I mean, we're just going to continue to see it left and right. And Democrats are just going to continue to win. And we will see by the time, maybe before November, he could be a lame duck president, and Democrats could have the power to make some changes. But until then, we will keep you guys updated on the latest on the election front. And then moving on to, we have Pam Bondi and the House Oversight Committee controversy. So, in a big domestic story, former Attorney General Pam Bondi is refusing to appear before the House Oversight Committee next week. She had been subpoenaed to testify on April 14th about the Justice Department's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. Bondi was fired by President Trump just days ago around April 2nd. Trust me, they knew that she was going to be grilled by these House Oversight Committee members. Now, the Justice Department and the White House are saying she does not have to show up because the subpoena was issued for her official capacity as Attorney General, and she no longer holds that position. Democrats on the committee are calling this move absurd and a obvious attempt to dodge accountability, which it basically is. This administration on this topic and other topics have completely veiled transparency and accountability from the American people. Ranking member Robert Garcia said Bondi is still legally obligated to testify that firing her does not erase the subpoena. Some
I'm
Republicans,
very excited to see if she'll change up what she says now that she's been basically thrown to the side by Trump. If she'll be like go against him because she's angry or in fear,
well, now they're
she'll
saying
keep
that
going
she
with
doesn't
him.
have to. The administration is saying she doesn't have to go because she's not Attorney General anymore. So they know what they're doing. It's unfortunate because she may not actually end up being questioned by the Oversight Committee. But rest assured, if Democrats do take over either branch, well, not either branch, either house, the House or the Senate, just know they will be bringing her in for testimony on what was going on during her tenure at the Department of Justice with the Epstein files. And some Republicans, even including Representative Nancy Mace, who helped push the subpoena, agree that she should still appear. And critics say this looks like the White House is shielding her from tough questions about the Epstein files and potentially a cover up, which we all know that really this is.
Yeah,
And the
yeah,
committees are
absolutely.
now, yeah, they're discussing
Absolutely.
next steps and possible contempt charges as well. And this story is developing and could get even more heated in the coming days. And that brings us to the end of today's update until we're back on Friday. And the 2 week ceasefire has created a short breathing space over overseas, but the heavy strikes in Lebanon with at least 254 killed on April 8th and dispute over whether Lebanon was included, Israel's frustrations at being sidelined, only two oil tankers passing through the Strait of Hormuz so far before traffic was suspended again. Iran's new potential revenue from the Strait fees and the fragile nature of the deal mean anything could collapse quickly at any moment. And honestly, that's what a Donald Trump presidency feels like. And that's what it's felt like from
The
his first
second
term
term,
until now.
absolutely.
I mean, first
I
term was
gotta
a little
say,
straight.
I want
First term was like,
I
eh.
wonder how much COVID in that first term was able to delay all of this. Like, if COVID didn't happen that first term of his presidency, I wonder if he would have been doing all of this then. But because it was so occupied with COVID, he couldn't do it then. So they just basically laid the groundwork for an Iranian invasion.
Yeah.
Because I
Mm,
mean, it would
mm-mm-mm.
not, if anyone was going to do it, it was going to be him. I
Yeah, because
mean,
they could fool him. A
and
PowerPoint presentation. Yep, let's do it.
and on top of that, like, of all the presidents to invade a country, I have to check if Obama did any invading with ground troops, but I don't believe he did. But it was Bush, the conservatives. Bush was in modern history, the
Yeah,
2000s
it's
and
a
more
repeating
recently.
cycle.
Yeah,
Republicans
the
wreck
conservatives
the
are the ones who
economy.
go for the land invasion, the ones
Yeah,
that escalate things to a unreasonable measure.
yeah, Republicans always ruin the economy, bring us into war, cut all social programs. And then what happens? We elect a Democrat who does all the opposite for either one term or two terms. And then everyone gets fed up with all the culturalness of the Democrat by the second term or by their last 2 years. And then they put in a Republican who what does the same exact thing all over again. It's a repeating cycle when you look at it.
It's an interesting
Democrats
cycle for what's supposed to be the greatest country in the world.
I mean, it's just completely outrageous. And when you had the worst of it all during the Great Depression and all that, obviously you had FDR step up to the bat, and Democrats have always
You
been the
love
ones
this
to step
man.
up.
Like, if you
I
could
mean,
see
he's the
FDR in the street, I'm
greatest.
confident you kiss him on the lips.
Oh no, the only person I'm
I'm
kissing on the lips
confident.
is my beautiful girlfriend, my friend, no one else. But
No,
FDR
it's
is a great
okay. It's
man, dude.
okay to have a
He
man on the side.
he is a great man. I mean, looking at it on the as like someone that studies politics like myself in that nature, he is just someone even on a Republican standpoint. I don't understand how can you hate him when there's various programs that have stood the test of times that Republicans wish
He
that they could
threw
do.
Japanese Americans in concentration
Whoa,
camps
whoa, whoa.
because
If
they were
you talk about
Japanese.
just on the basis of average Americans at that time, that's why I always put it in context because you got to put it in context when you're speaking
Okay,
about
okay.
it.
You said
If
there's
you talk about
nothing that you
average
could
Americans
criticize
at
him
that
over. I
time,
think that's a pretty easy thing to criticize him
well, I
over.
mean,
That's
average
all I'm
Americans
saying.
back at that time, I would say the majority were doing a lot better, or at least on the same playing field, or at least had avenues to move up because you had all of these new programs that came in from his administration. That's
Alright.
why I speak to that. You have a large widening net that he cast compared to other presidents and the things that they've done. I would say because obviously everyone wants to have a lasting legacy. He's probably him, Lincoln, JFK are probably the only three presidents to actually have a lasting legacy to where you're like, you know exactly what
Washington.
they did. Like you know exactly the reasoning they have a legacy and things of that nature.
Washington,
And
number
it's
1.
funny enough that
Washington's
it's all
existence why we have 2 terms in
I say it's
general.
funny enough, it's all technically
Washington and
Republicans.
FDR.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
all technically Democrats, all those individuals.
Nah.
Lincoln would be a Democrat today.
Descriptions change as time goes on. You can't apply the term Democrat as we know it nowadays to 100 years ago in the past.
What do you
They stood
what
for totally different things. Just because a good example, just because you call Israel a country now doesn't mean it's the Israel of 3,000 years ago, and neither is a Democrat now a Democrat of 100 years ago. I
right,
think when you're
exactly.
looking at this is
That's
the
what
thing. Wait, give me a moment. This is a big thing that bothers me about modern political conversations is a lot of people will say they'll be like, "Oh, well, in the past it was the conservatives who stood up for the civil rights," and I'm like, "Shit changes. Shit, people change. Times
no,
change
yeah,
very
that's
quickly.
yeah,
You
that's my
can't
point.
use the achievements of the past to back up your beliefs of the modern time using the name of this just because it's the same. It doesn't back up your argument at all when you stand for completely different ideals. And what bothers me the most about this is when, in this example, you're saying that, "Oh, well, I think that in modern times, you can't really look back at FDR and criticize him like that." I'm like, "Man, I think that at any time in recent history, putting people in concentration camps because they're Japanese a specific
Whoa.
ethnicity is worthy of
You gotta look at the context of where I put it. I didn't say you couldn't criticize him. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is in the general, the average general American back then was very well off and had the social safety net created by them by the Democratic president. And then I was also then saying that legacy with presidents is mainly cemented with three Democratic presidents: FDR, Lincoln, who yes, on paper
He didn't wanna abolish
he's
slavery. He
written down
didn't.
as a Republican, but his views coalesce with the Democratic Party currently.
He
That's why,
didn't wanna
but that's
abolish
why
slavery,
but that's
though.
also when you have the conversation when people say that, well, the Democratic Party is a party of the KKK. Well, then that technically argument also holds no validity. Because yes, maybe it was, but now we're the totally different opposite. So yes, things change, but you can't have it work for one sentence and not in the same breath, even though it's still implicating to the same things. It's still ideologies that yes did change, and yes, Lincoln was a Republican then, but his stances then would be more aligned with Democrats now than Republicans today. I mean, he even stood against all of the obviously the slavery and things of that nature, wanting to preserve the Union as the outright utmost important thing, with slavery being curtailed into that. But yes, looking at him now in today's context and present date, he would be considered Democrat. And with the legacy that I was speaking towards, which Trump is actively trying to reach, it's mostly Democratic presidents that reach that bar when you look at it.
And
JFK,
but one thing I wanna
FDR,
add is that
Lincoln. You
Lincoln
can even
wasn't
throw Bill Clinton in that because he's the only person
Lynn
that
was
actually
actually a
have a
pretty good
you
president.
can
All
actually
things considered, I'd
Bill
actually
Clinton.
consider in the modern age, I'd probably consider Bill Clinton the best president of the modern age. I'm not
Yeah, I would say
bluffing when I
modern
say
age is
that.
past like
He
I would say
balanced the
modern age is
budget.
past like
He had he
1950s.
ha he spread NATO influence further into Eastern Europe with the Bosnia situation, and in my personal favor, he bombed the shit out of Milosevic and his ethnic supremacist ideals. Point
He was
being, though,
very,
is that
very,
I
very
do
good.
think that Clinton was honestly better than Obama, better than Biden, better than Bush and
Oh,
H.W.
and even
Bush.
on this topic, I saw that crazy enough. I have to double check if it's true, but back in I want to say like maybe high school or whatever, you had um that chart that basically had various dots on it on all four corners, basically like Hitler's here on the political spectrum. George Washington is here, X, Y, and Z. Tell me how I saw that they have Obama 2008 as like a right-leaning centrist. I'm like, wow. Just wow. Like it's crazy how
It depends on where,
it's
like, I
like
don't know, European right is basically American left from what people say, but I'm not I don't I have to look more into European politics personally.
Yeah, I just don't think he was a more like I guess if you were writing obviously if you're writing that textbook with today's context and today's political parties and standing, yeah, honestly, Obama probably would be centered around a centrist right leaning, just given his immigration policies in '08. But I mean, to put that in an actual textbook as like his political leanings, I'm like, no, that man was 100% progressive in that 2008 political mindset. That's what his views were at that time. Realistically, it's just crazy how these school books are you know straying away from a lot of the truth. Realistically, and I'm actually
I mean,
glad to
that's one
not
thing
be
that I
within
actually
that.
find interesting is how much there's the big trail that leads to the fact that Gillian Maxwell's father
Oh yeah,
bec
all the textbooks are
owned the
made in Texas.
company that controlled most American educational textbooks in public schools.
Yeah, all the
So
textbooks are
there's
made
that
in
influence that
Texas.
was put in and then lives to the present day. And really what you learn growing up really does shape what you can believe and think once you get older. And it takes more discovery, curiosity, and research to break past that mold.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's I,
It's like the
the
clean
term.
slate theory. That's what I usually like by I think John Locke, the
What's the
clean
theory?
slate, the clean slate theory. Like basically, like you're saying, everyone is born. You're a clean slate. Like think of like a whiteboard. Like it's just basically clean, and then everything within your environment is what empowers you. Is what is written on the board. Is basically how you develop up your self nurture nature, depending upon what it is. But like yeah,
Yeah.
basically everyone just starts off clean, and your environment is shown through you. Basically, you're a reflection of that in a sense, and it's always a I do always appreciate that theory and the I think it's Rousseau, if I'm mistaken. I'm a little dated on my philosophy. I haven't read a philosophy book, I think, in like 2 years. But the
Yeah.
social contract, always a fan of. Love that theory as well. But yeah, man, if you have not read any good philosophy books, definitely tap into some good ones. Definitely,
Yeah, I've
definitely.
only looked into Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and I
Great.
got I
Yeah, it's a
got through
great book.
about an eighth of it, I already had my own thoughts about it, so I put it down and started another book. But
Gotta read the Prince is very good. Machiavelli. Gotta read that one. That's a great one.
I'll look
It's a
into
very good
that.
book.
There's always more
Very good
books I'm
book.
looking for. I'm trying to read a book a month going forward. Trying to see if I can get more than that too. But as it goes, some books are longer than others. I
No,
want to
seriously.
read Don Quixote and the Brothers Karamazov, but both books are like 700 to 900 pages, and that's more than 1 month read unless I've got
Oh
a lot
yeah.
of time on my schedule.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, I have actually I do some fun reading, so I've been reading Star Wars books. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
Like
hey man,
three.
anything's good. Those
Right, and I like it because it has a lot of like political things involved in it. At least the
undertones
books
and
that
themes.
I'm reading. Like at least I'm
Yeah,
not
I
reading
gotta
like
watch. What
the
was it?
fighters and stuff.
What's the
But
Star Wars show that came out on Disney Plus that was really well acclaimed?
Andor and the new
Andor. I
one.
was gonna say I was gonna say Couture because I was like it sounds like that's what it
No,
was,
yeah,
but I
Andor,
can't
yeah.
remember.
Yeah, and our listeners, if you guys have not watched that show, please, for the love of God, watch that show. It is
I
a
gotta watch it myself.
complete comparison to what is going on within the United States. And I say that because I know we have listeners from across the pond, and we always appreciate you. But yes, definitely listen, definitely watch Andor. And for me, this is actually a great week, well, next couple of weeks. I mean, I got TV shows like every single day from Monday to Thursday, just about. I mean, but yeah, but as we were getting into our closing and got and joyfully sidetracked with some great conversation. Once again, to our listeners, we always appreciate you guys coming on, and thank you for joining us today on Behind the Ballot, where we keep politics engaged, balanced, and informative. Stay curious, stay critical, and stay involved. I'm Mikhail Jenkins, and until next time, keep looking beyond the headlines and behind the ballot.
And this is Muhammad Ali. God bless America. God bless you all. God bless Pennsylvania, especially. I gotta say, wait. On a side note, Penn State, what college wrestling team do you support?
You talking to me?
Yeah, I said MJ. What
Oh, I thought you
college
said
wrestling
Penn
team
State.
do
I
you
was like,
support?
I was like, huh? Probably Penn State.
Penn
I have,
State, you're from Jersey.
yeah, but I mean, I've always been a fan of Penn State. I mean, I was a
Cause,
fan of
cause are
Rutgers
you?
too.
Cause is it because they're good?
No, I liked in high school. I always liked Ed Roof hitting his duck unders and cradles. I was a fan of that. I
That was
liked
smooth.
uh, David Taylor's ankle picks. Huge fan of that. I also liked what's his
Man,
name?
these are
Ohio
fair
State.
arguments. Let me interrupt you for a
Yeah,
brief
fair.
moment.
Yeah,
These
they're
are fair
fair.
arguments,
Fair arg
but
and
you're
I've
from
been to a few
Jersey.
matches too. I've
You
been
should
to a few
support a
matches.
Jersey team.
No, 100%. I was a fan of Sirianni when he was making his run up. When he like faced Dalton Fix all those times. Oh, trust me, I was watching. I was a
But
huge
you're a Penn
fan.
State fan.
But yeah, I mean, I even have a Penn State.
You
What's it
didn't
called?
even go to Penn State. You're not even from Pennsylvania. How are you? How is
Funny enough,
this?
I actually do have graduate credits from Rutgers. Funny enough.
You should be a Rutgers fan.
No, I do like Rutgers. Don't get me wrong; they are a good organization, and Jersey is
But
better
they're
than
not good enough
Pennsylvania.
for
But
you.
no, no, not good enough for me at all. They're just as perfect for
Oh
anybody
my
else.
god, ridiculous. Well, let me put in my two thoughts. They so I'm from Pennsylvania, unlike Mikkel here, and I am not a Penn State fan because I have no affiliation with them whatsoever. I do like Lehigh though. I like Lehigh a lot more
Yeah,
than Penn
Lehigh.
State.
They
But I got because I've lived in Maryland as long as I have, and because the closest college I've lived in and near has been University of Maryland. I'm actually a big UMD fan, and they got an All American this year, which is a huge deal for the school.
Yeah, I
So,
didn't see that actually. Yeah, they did get a All
dude,
American.
D1 Nationals are crazy this year.
I actually went to a wrestling camp during high school at University of Maryland. We did University of Maryland and University of Virginia. Both were very
Virginia.
fun. Both were very fun. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. Oh man, I
Very
miss
fun.
wrestling. I got to get back into it, but I need more time on my schedule
Yeah, I saw
because
Corey Rank. He well, I gotta stop this because when I we gotta turn this recording off. It's
all right, here. So let me end it then. Thank
yeah.
you, everyone, for listening. God bless you all. God bless wrestling and Pennsylvania as well. New Jersey, best of luck to you
We
all.
already know we're better. We have a
Best of
better
luck.
minimum
Best of luck to
better
everyone
minimum
in New
wage, better
Jersey.
education. Come on, just come to New Jersey.